Design challenges. This is week 4, so this would be March 2nd through March 8th. And what we're doing is trying to position everyone to get in and stretch their information architecture muscles as we head up to World IA Day on March 8th. I'm sure you can find an event to attend on World IA Day on March 8th. There'll probably be a lot of exciting things happening. But, this is one of those, I don't know, I'll call it a highly technical area of design where we really have to think about how information is structured and communicated. And so there are going to be some tough challenges this week, things that are conceptually difficult. And I remember going through each of these my first time and thinking just about how much it hurt to do them for the first time. But at the end of the day, it's completely changed how I personally design. So I'm hoping it does the same for you if you've never experienced it before. And I hope it is maybe a moment of growth for you if you've done this 1,000 times, just to step out of maybe a work environment and do this personally on something that you care about. So day 1, card sorting exercise. This one should be pretty straightforward. Create a card sorting exercise, 15 to 20 items. You can certainly go more if you want to have a deeper exploration of an area. But pick a website or an app that's interesting to you, maybe one that you feel could use the guidance. Maybe you can ship this to some not-for-profit that you want to support at the end of the day and say, hey, I conducted this card sorting exercise and here's what I found and here's what you may want to consider about how to structure this. And just analyze the results, identify patterns and mental models, and present those. Just say, hey, here's what we found. Here's some interesting things that we thought we found, or here's some interesting things I found, and go share sort of your digest of it. It'd be interesting to hear, and it would certainly start some good discussions. You can do these with physical cards, stickies, or pieces of paper. So if you print them out using label templates, you can certainly cut them with some scissors and have cards that way. You can hand write them, however it works for you. But you could also use digital tools like Miro. We suggest using Miro because it provides 3 free boards in perpetuity. So it should be an easy way for you to do this and potentially share with others. But if you already have a subscription to Mural, or if you're in FigJam, you can use those as well. There are also some tools that are focused on this, like Optimal's Toolset, Optimal Sort. And I think they have a 7-day free trial that you could potentially use. But either way, get in there and do this. The link here, the resource we have, is pretty in-depth in terms of card sorting and the different ways of doing it, and sort of the pros and cons. But should be a fun, easy entry into the first day of our World IA Day week of challenges. Number 2 here, create a sitemap for a service or product. And you could work on the tail end of the previous day's work. So you've gone through your card sort. And the suggestion here is to go, something we practice, I think, in week 1, which is establish a handful of user flows. And this is one of the struggles with a website specifically. And sometimes, I'm sure with apps as well, is that oftentimes you're presenting a body of content that is supposed to support everyone who needs to come through it, but you're presenting it in one way. Whereas an app oftentimes is probably more customary to allow for different views of the same information so that people with different jobs can do their jobs most efficiently. With a website, oftentimes it's presented in one way and you try to afford people a pathway through it. So it may be good to come up with a handful of really quick personas and then user flows for those personas, and then build a sitemap based on that. But you've already done the card sorting exercise from the day before. You'll have the stories from that to help fuel the user flows that'll help fuel the sitemap. And there are 2 good resources here, one on user flows and one on sitemap. The user flows resource you've seen before if you've been following along. Number 3, redesign a navigation system. And this can be, again, at the tail end of the previous 2 days. Find find a website with confusing or bloated navigation, and again, you could have done this already when you processed your card sort, and just sketch a more simplified version of it. Think about structure, think about how information is stacked next to each other, so sort of the gestalt of information, how it's hidden and shown based on how people self-select into different hierarchies of information, different menu items and sub-items, footer menus, on-page content, so on and so forth. Like, how does navigation support someone's path through this thing? And a good resource for a topic on navigation from the Interaction Design Foundation should help you with that. Analyze a search experience. So these last two are going to be a little bit most likely on the more challenging side if you haven't done something like this before, but we try to simplify them a little bit to help you start to ask questions. And just find a site that is relatively content heavy, and it could be e-commerce, it could be sort of something that would classify as like a library or an encyclopedia or a comprehensive knowledge set. And just evaluate the search. Look at the filters, look at the autocomplete, look at the relevance of the results, and just write 3 key takeaways on how the search experience could be improved. And you could consider the questions below, like how well does the search system anticipate user intent effectively? So when you're typing in words, you are trying to find something, but there's also intent behind that. The idea here that 5 people could type in those same words, but they could have different desired outcomes. And so it's not just, hey, how well did it respond to the words I typed in, but how well did it respond to my actual need? The other second one here is, how does the site assist the users in refining their search? And the third one is, what happens when a search returns too many or too few results? And there are a few resources here. One is search from Nielsen Norman, based on just good practices around search. And the other one is from New Lab, same thing. The last one is design a content taxonomy. And this is another conceptual one, it's fairly abstract, but choose a media-rich platform, so Netflix, Spotify, or maybe an online news site, and propose a taxonomy for categorizing the content. You define at least 3 levels of classification, genre, theme, format. If you've never thought about taxonomies before, this can be a tough task, as it doesn't always feel immediately usable or practical. But I would encourage you to work through it and absorb as much as you can from the experience. You're building your design muscles here. And I remember the first time, I've done taxonomy work before, but I remember the first time I had to do it formally. And it definitely hurt a bit to do. But at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, it was a very valuable thing to exercise to go through, and it's changed the way I think about design. And there's a really great piece from Nielsen Norman on taxonomies, Taxonomy 101, that'll help spell out some of the sort of the nuances of thinking about taxonomy. But for this one, do as best as you can, work through it. It may be perfect, but it may not, and it's really just working through it that will be the win. And share your observations and thoughts. It'll be a good exercise. And good luck here on week 4 of Design Challenges. Make sure to speak up if you have any questions, and we'll do our best to help.